Hi, I'm Jenny MARTO from SK St. Joseph Miri, Sarawak. I am feeling very privileged today that I am able to share my actual research entitled The Use of 4SP Technique to Improve Year 5 Pupils' Writing Skill. This is my research outline. I will start with my reflection, then my focus, research objectives, target group, implementation, and finally suggestions and recommendations for future research. This is my reflection during the process of teaching and learning. As we know now that we are in the COVID-19 pandemic, the pupils' attendance to online class is not encouraging. The pupils didn't perform well in their writing too, which I got it from the recent PPT report. The pupils face difficulties, especially to use correct tenses and connect sentences and paragraphs, which in turn, pupils struggle in their writing, less motivation and interest to learn writing too. And finally, teachers are complaining about their pupils' writing. This is my research focus, which I will discuss on the research objectives and the target group. These are my actual research objectives. The first one is to improve the pupils' writing skills, and the second one is to increase the pupils' interest in learning writing skills. This is my target group. My pupils are 11 years old and they are in year 5C in my school, SK St. Joseph Miri. It involves 15 pupils who consistently joining my Google Meet sessions, and they are from mixed ability performance level. This is my action research implementation. I will discuss on the preliminary data collection, analysis of preliminary data, and then what are my actions, the implementation of my action research, and finally the reflection on the action research. Based on my preliminary data collection from my pupils' work, I found out that they have difficulty in their sentence structure building. And from the PBD result, most of them didn't get good performance levels because of their writing skills. And from the postmortem and discussion with the other English teachers, we found out that the most challenging skill is the writing skill among the students or my pupils. Then, for my analysis of my preliminary data, I found out that most pupils have problems in their writing sentences because of their lack of vocabulary, and the sentences in the paragraphs are not connected. After my preliminary data and the analysis, I took some actions. I started with my literature review, and from my readings, I found out that it is true that the pupils are having problems in their writing because there are problems in grammar and the shortcomings in their development of ideas to communicate meaningfully and effectively. And from there, I plan my steps for the 4SP technique. Then I choose a topic and develop my test 1 and test 2. For my implementation, I implemented test 1 before the intervention, and after that, I have a series of intervention to introduce the 4SP technique introduction step by step according to the pace of learning of my pupils. Then I proceed with my test 2, analysis of test 1 and test 2. And for my reflection of this actual research, I will do it mainly from the difference of pupils' performance in their test 1 and test 2 and based on my observation. This is how I introduce the 4SP technique. 4SP technique means actually the 4 sentences and 4 paragraphs. This is to help them to do the draft before their writing. But before I teach them to do that, I taught them to prepare the 4SP strips first. Now we start with, first they prepare the materials such as A4 paper, scissors, glue, and colored pencil, colored markers. Then they have to fold this paper, until they have this size. And after that, they need to unfold to have this, and then they need to cut them into small strips, which altogether will be 16 strips. Then we move on with step 2. We need to construct and combine sentences. Here, the pupils brainstorm the 4 sentences and transfer them on the strips using colored pens and markers. Right, in this intervention, I gave them 4 pictures for each paragraph, and they are guided with few words so that they can make the sentences more meaningfully. 4 sentences first in one paragraph. Then, after that, in step 3, they need to connect the sentences into one paragraph. Okay, they will connect the strips, the 4 sentences just now, into a long strip using glue or staple. After that, the pupils connect the sentences using a red pen or marker to write other words. Here, the ones in red are addition to their sentences using conjunctions or other phrases to make more meaningful sentences. Then we move on with step 4, where they need to repeat steps 2 to 3 for paragraph 2, 3, and 4. Finally, after they are satisfied with their sentences in the paragraphs, they just have to move on with the next step, which is to rewrite. Okay, those are the introduction of the 4SP technique and some feedback from my pupils. Now I'm going to move on with my reflection of my action research. And this reflection is done by looking at the differences of the pupils' performance in their test 1 and test 2. Okay, this is their test 1 and this is their performance in test 2. And from these two, I could see that actually there is an increment in the percentage of pupils who got 36 to 40 marks and 28 to 31 marks, 47% and 27%. And there is a decrease for the marks 26 to 27, 22 to 25, and 20 to 21 as they move on to the higher level. Now, these are actually done based on my rubric for my writing. All right, so I think it will be clearer if we see this graph, test 1 and test 2. And then from here, I can conclude that the pupils' performances in their writing had shifted to the right, which shows improvement in their writing performances. And you can see their marks here, or their scores in test 1 and test 2 shows difference or increment in the pupils' scores. Now, these are the findings that I've got from the pupils' performances and observation. I found out that the 4SP technique had helped them to construct more connected sentences, which in turn make them more meaningful. In test 2, there is an increment in their confidence in writing because now the writing is more controlled, and it shows a decrease in number of errors in their sentences, which I believe with time, if they continue using the 4SP technique, they may show better writing, especially more complex sentences in the future. And then finally, pupils show more interest in writing because they had fun writing on the strips using the colored pencils and markers. They did some folding, cutting, and combining the strips and brainstorming the sentences with their friends. For this section, I'm going to discuss on the observation and discussion and suggestions and recommendations for future research. Okay. Now, this section I divide into 4, which are observation, pupils' work, pupils' performances, and others. Okay. These are based on what I've seen during the action research and after the action research. All right. Based on my observation, I can see that there is an increase of people's interest or motivation. Right, they are eager to learn to write, and so their attendance are getting more positive. Right, at first it was a bit slow because they have to prepare the strips, but then as we move on, they got better with teachers modeling and more brainstorming. And for the people's work, I can see now that pupils' writing is more controlled. And for the pupils' performances, for the good ones, it shows slight improvement, but now they are better in writing sentence structures and their writing is more controlled. And for the average and the weaker pupils, they have improved in their scores, which means they have less mistakes. And for others, during the intervention, I found out that the pupils had problems with their irregular verbs, the verb to, and I didn't, which is, I think this will be a gap that can be filled for future research. And I found out that the size of the strips was quite small. So when they write, they have difficulty a bit. So I would suggest that instead of folding 4 times, let them to fold 2 times. But now they need to use 2 pieces of A4 papers so that they can write longer sentences. Now these are my pupils' work before intervention. You can see from the left, the one on the left and the right. So the sentences were not connected and the meaning was unclear. The sentences are like being separated. So it jumped from different parts of the sentence and then the meaning was unclear. And another problem that they had was they used wrong grammar. So in conclusion, before the intervention, I found out that the sentences in their paragraphs were not connected and the grammar use was wrong because they tend to mix present and the past tense forms. But after the intervention, now I can see that the pupils' work or their sentences are improved in form of sentence structures, and the sentences now are more connected and the meaning is clear. Now, these are the suggestions and recommendations that I have for future research. I will start with for researchers to venture with other descriptive writing, such as writing emails or speech and others, right? And venture with other tenses, such as present and the continuous tenses. And they can add in the teacher's questioning to trigger pupils' ideas to write. And as for teachers, I would like to recommend that teachers to modify and adapt this 4SP technique according to their pupils' levels and needs. And it is important to give positive feedback to encourage the pupils' interest in learning to write. And finally, find other fun and hands-on activities to teach writing skills. And for the pupils, they need to be encouraged to learn from their mistakes. As they're saying, to err is human, so that they are not afraid to make mistakes, but not to give up and learn from them. So that's it for my sharing today. Thank you for listening.